It's a pretty wild statistic, but some studies say that up to 70%, yeah, 70% of all change initiatives just fail. That's a huge number, right? And in the world we live in now, change isn't just happening, it's speeding up. So today, what we're going to do is lay out a strategic blueprint, a real plan, to help you beat those odds and actually manage change in a way that works. All right, so how do we actually do that? How do we navigate this crazy, fast-paced world? Well, here's our game plan for today. We're going to start by looking at what it takes to survive in this changing world. Then, we'll get into exactly what organizational development is. We'll cover its core goals, why it really truly matters, and finally, the actual step-by-step process of change. It's going to be good. Okay, so let's start with the big one. We're talking about surviving in a world that is just constantly shifting under our feet. I mean, let's just face it. Change isn't something that happens once in a while anymore. It's the new normal. It is relentless, It's driven by competition, crazy new technologies, and a market that spans the entire globe. And this leads to the one question that I hear from leaders all the time, the one that really keeps them up at night. With all this pressure, all this competition, why do so many big change projects just fizzle out? How do you make change actually stick? Because let's be real, a temporary fix is like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg. It's just not going to cut it. The real challenge, the real goal, is building an organization that's designed to adapt and evolve all by itself. All right, so how do we get there? How do we stop just reacting to crises and start being proactive? Well, the answer is a really smart approach called Organizational Development, or OD for short. And the whole idea here is to stop treating change like a one-off emergency and start seeing it as a continuous journey, a constant process of getting better. Let me put it this way, because the difference is huge. Think about traditional training. It's like a one-time event, focused on just one skill. It's kind of like going to the gym super hard on January 1st. Sure, you feel good for a day, but it doesn't make you fit long-term. It's a temporary fix. Now, organizational development, that's totally different. It's an ongoing, cyclical process. It looks at the whole system, not just one part. It's like having a fitness plan for your entire organization all year round. And that's what creates real, lasting cultural change. Okay, so here's the formal definition. And yeah, I know it can sound a little academic, but stick with me, because the idea is actually pretty simple. It says OD is a planned, top-down, organization-wide effort to boost effectiveness using behavioral science. So what does that mean? Well, think of your organization like a really complex engine. OD is like bringing in expert mechanics who don't just guess. They run diagnostics, they use data, that's the behavioral science part, to figure out exactly what needs tuning to make the whole thing run better. It's planned, it's systematic, and it involves everyone. And Warren Bennis, who was a total giant in leadership studies, he just nailed it with his quote. He said, OD is a response to change, a strategy to change the beliefs, attitudes, values, and structure of an organization so it can adapt. See, it's not just about shuffling boxes on an org chart. It's so much deeper. It's about changing how people think, what they believe, and how they work together. It's literally about weaving this ability to adapt right into the company's DNA. Okay, so that's the definition. But what are we actually trying to achieve with all this? What does a successful OD effort actually look like when it's done? What are the core goals? Well, it's about a few really key things. First, it's about creating a culture that can renew itself, one that's great at solving its own problems. It's also about building trust and making sure communication is open and honest, from the top floor to the shop floor. A big one is building a culture where authority comes from what you know, your competence, not just your job title. And ultimately, it's about getting people more excited and satisfied with their work. You're building an organization that's not just more effective, but genuinely a better place to be. Now, this all sounds great, right? But here's where it gets really serious. This isn't just some nice-to-have HR initiative. In today's world, this is a strategic advantage. It's about why organizational development truly matters to the bottom line. So why should you invest in OD? Well, for 3 huge reasons. First, adaptability. This is about your very survival. It gives you the ability to respond effectively when the market shifts or a new challenge pops up. Second, performance. You get the most out of your biggest investment, your people. It boosts productivity, it boosts morale, the whole shebang. And third, human capital. In a competitive job market, this is how you attract, motivate, and keep your best people, by making their work life genuinely better. It's a massive, massive advantage. Okay, so we know what it is and we know why it's so important. The next logical question is how? How do we actually do this? Well, the great news is there's a proven step-by-step process. It's called the Action Research Model, and it's basically your blueprint for making change happen. So, the Action Research Model is basically a cycle. It's not a one-and-done thing. You diagnose a problem, you take some action, and then, and this is the key part, you evaluate the results to figure out your next move. It's not a straight line from A to B. It's a continuous loop of learning and improving over and over again. And this whole model really breaks down into 4 clear steps. You've got diagnosis and data collection, then feedback and action planning, then implementation, and finally evaluation. This simple 4-step process is really the core of how OD works in practice. All right, step 1, diagnosis and data collection. Think of this as the detective phase. Your job is to find the root cause of the problem, not just the obvious symptoms. So you're going to use fact-finding tools, things like surveys, interviews, just observing what's going on to really understand what's happening under the surface. Okay, next up is step 2, feedback and action planning. Now that you have all this data, you don't just sit on it. You share it, and you work with your people to figure out what it all means. This is a super collaborative step. Together, you analyze everything and design a targeted plan, a specific intervention to address the issue you found. Then comes step 3, implementation. This is the action phase. It's time to actually execute the plan you just created. And that intervention could be anything, really. It might be team-building exercises, maybe some leadership coaching, or even bigger changes like improving a whole process. You're putting the plan into motion. And finally, step 4, evaluation. This part is absolutely critical. You have to measure the results. Did the intervention work? Did it solve the problem we set out to fix? You assess the impact, and just as importantly, you identify new opportunities for improvement. Then, all that new learning, it feeds right back into the beginning of the cycle for the next round. So it really all comes down to this one question. Is your organization built to just react to change when it happens? Or is it actually designed to renew itself, to constantly evolve? What we've seen today is that organizational development gives you the tools and the blueprint to build a company that doesn't just survive change, but actually thrives on it. It becomes a place that's always learning, always adapting. And that's the real goal, isn't it?